Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to the Age of Sigmar Monday show. We're back. Nathan, we're back in the house. How you feeling? I'm joined by Nathan and James. No Dan today. He's still getting his ass washed. Which is actually what's happening. He's working for... we can't disclose who he's working for. So that's genuinely true. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Nathan, James, how are you both?
Yeah, super good. I was just getting distracted by Nathan's charming smile.
Me too. Nathan, how are you?
I think he's muted himself.
I knew it. I was like, there's something gone wrong. I've also deleted my background somehow. So
I like your background.
Yeah, I
There's
deleted
nothing
it.
there.
It's not. Oh no, you've seen a different background. You can see the green screen.
Yeah, I can see both, but on the stream, because I have the stream open for occasional parts.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yes, Nathan is. Don't do that for the podcast, bros. Don't go. Right. Okay. I'm going to sort this out while we crack on. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Look at all the wonderful people who've joined us live. Stucky Note, Grimgar, Colonel Cabbage, Scrivo, Speckles. Good evening, Scott B. Where is Dan? That's a great question. Can we all find out where Dan is? I know where he is, but he doesn't want anyone to... Nathan, could you let us know where you think he might be?
Where do I think Dan is?
Yeah. Do you know? Have you read the WhatsApp chat, or have you no idea?
I've got no idea where he is.
You would love where he is. Like, you would really love where he is. Yeah. Have a guess where you think he might be.
He is on top of a mountain.
God,
is he on top of a mountain?
That is so a bushman's answer, isn't it? Like, where is someone? They're probably like on a safari up a mountain or fucking whatever. Like, I don't know what Zimbabweans do. Building a wigwam. What did you used to do as a child, Nate?
Built a wigwam. Yeah, built loads of wigwams. No wigwams. What did I used to do as a child? So many things.
Weren't you really into bird watching with the Bushmen?
Yeah, yep. I was out every weekend bird watching or fishing. I was well into my bird watching and my fishing.
Not that it's relevant to Age of Sigmar or this entire show, but I now need to know, what was the best fish you ever caught?
I reckon I caught a largemouth bass, which was quite fun. It was like the last throw of the lure as I was leaving that night, and then it was probably the biggest one I've ever caught. Because I used to go bass fishing a fair bit. They had American bass that they had imported there, and I used to go fishing with my mate from school, and his dad was so pissed off that I'd hooked this fish just as he was loading the car, and then he had to wait fucking 10-15 minutes whilst I got around to landing the thing.
Wow.
There you go.
It was your bass attempt. Oh, it didn't work. Close enough. That was good. James! Right, hello everyone, welcome to the show. Just if you're listening, you're like, what the hell is this show going to be about? Is it going to be about bass fishing? It's 100% about only bass fishing. Nothing else. Welcome to the new Monday show. We're doing no other content. Today we are going to be talking about Tzeentch War Scrolls. It's a little bit more complicated than that. I'll get into it in the future, like when we get to that bit in the show. But basically, we're going to look at Age of Sigmar lists, or I'm going to talk about archetypal units that you see in a list. And every week, we're going to do a new army. So, like this week, we're going to be looking at the war scrolls you most often see in Tzeentch. And instead of just saying they're good, we're going to say why they're good, what things happen. We're going to have a talk about it. Nathan will get to emotionally react to the points. It's going to be a great time. We're going to talk about Be'lakor, of course, in a minute. But James, catch us up. How have you been? What's going on? Did you see that they're bringing out a new Lumineth book?
Yeah, did see that they're bringing out a new Lumineth book. I think we discussed that like in 1992 when they brought out the White Lion Chariot.
Yeah, we did. How have you been? What have you been up to?
Not a lot. Still in the house. New job means I have left the house a little bit more. So I actually went and worked in an office for 3 weeks last week. That was really weird. On one day.
3 weeks in 1 week. That's great.
3 days. 3 days. Went 3
really
days.
compressed time.
And then one of the days I met 50 people.
What?
That was an interesting experience.
You are a fucking slut. That's great.
50
Well done.
people.
Yeah, about 50 people. The building's huge, and I was wandering around, and so one of the rooms we went into a room, and it was so big that there was like 8 people in one room, and my new manager was like, "Oh, this is really useful. There's a bunch of people." Introduced me to them all, and the whole time he was telling me people's names, I was thinking, I haven't seen this many people in a room in like a year. And so by the time he'd finished introducing them all, couldn't remember anyone's name, but I did meet lots of people.
And that's actually a very similar story to my life, actually. So you know that when they tell you, when you're doing a presentation, to picture everyone naked?
Yep.
So whenever I'm doing a stream, like, people jump in the chat like Asteroid TV, Tom Whitbrook, Gnomesbane, Stu Flynn, Jog BLC. They jump in a room, and then I picture all of them in the room with me naked. And then it just chills me out. And I'm just like, so the more people who join the stream, the more I imagine it. It gets really cramped after a certain amount of people. So we don't like to do more than 300 viewers at a time, otherwise I'm picturing all sorts. So
have you ever played the PC game Mount Your Friends?
I have not.
Okay, that's what I imagine your life is like when you're streaming now. So later I want you to find that game. It's on Steam.
Like every single person in the chat is like, I'm currently naked. Like, all of them. Every single one.
Maybe we should just have a show with like 500 cameras on.
They all call it one Skype call, 500 people. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Nathan, how are you? What's been going on?
I'm all right. Yeah, all good. Keeping busy at work, and not really done much hobby, really. I've painted a bit more of the big fella's rags, so getting there with that. What other hobby I've done?
For people listening at home who can't see, he's describing a mega gargant who at this stage is now just called Big Fella. Is that his name?
Yeah, that'll do for now. Big fella, nice and imaginative. That's me. Yeah.
And what percentage have you painted him up to? You have paused, so I'm worried that.
Can you see me?
Can see you now, bub.
Now?
Yeah.
Well, can we just guess a percentage?
Mark, he's
Oh, dear God.
52 point.
Oh, it's 52 point something.
I sometimes think, why doesn't this show get thousands of viewers? And the answer is, I know the answer. Like, right, okay. Right, let's go. We'll just slow it down. Twitch chat, don't worry. Yeah, the tension is so real. Everyone in the chat is on tenterhooks about what percentage Nathan's been. Nathan, you're back, baby.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
A lot of excitement. Could you please tell me what percentage your Mega Gargant is painted?
52.3%.
We did it, boys. We did it. There we go. Oh, I can't wait for next week for it to be somehow 47.6%. Nathan, how have you been? You been doing any Sigmar apart from painting up the big fella?
The only other Sigma I've done is argue with people on the internet about Caradron overlord rules.
Overrules?
So many overrules, yeah. Overrules.
Right. So, yeah, there's been a lot of arguing on the internet over the past couple of days about rules. So very excited to talk to us about the nitty-gritty, because I saw you do over 3 tweets, and I thought, that mechanical keypad on that Nokia 32 or whatever is having a rough time. What, James? You can't stop laughing at your face. Laughing. Bring it on. What's the? Talk to us about the rule. What's the situation? Break it down for us.
Can I be a dick with my Caradron? No.
Gonna need more context.
The people were saying, can you get out of your boat after you're using the special battalion, after it's flown high in the preceding what's it called, hero phase, if it's used, it's funny, there's always a breeze rule from Barrack Ziflin. My understanding is you can't, but some other people were saying no, you can.
Okay, so we had it on the stream. So we obviously streamed a tournament over the weekend. We had it on the stream where the player got all three. So I think it was Trogdor who was playing him. Got his units out of his frigates after they'd moved.
Yeah. So because if it's in the formation, they can get out after they've moved. But I would say if the boat has flown high at any point, then they won't be able to get out. Even if they've flown high in the hero phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just my
is
understanding from the FAQs and the thing.
Is it that there's not a general consensus? Like
No.
There is. Okay.
There's
All
no general consensus and
about anything.
You could argue either way, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. And so I imagine the Twitter conversation went really well, and you all resolved it, and someone was like, "That's definitely the answer."
Well, yeah. The last tweet I saw, everybody was like, "So we're in consensus," and everybody was like, "Yeah." So I don't know what consensus we're all in, but yeah, we're in consensus.
Okay.
That's good to hear. I'm pleased.
Okay. All right, please. Oh, that's actually gone way better than I thought. I actually, based on everything you've told me, still don't understand the situation. But Pete's written in the chat, it's nothing to do with the special battalion. It's just the natural rules. The Zilfin hero phase move boat can do it, as in disembark some Arkanauts after it's done it. The other boats that fly high in the movement phase, those boats can't disembark some lads. Is that consensus, Nathan?
Oh, I don't think they can do it if they've flown high, and the Barrack Zilfin guys can't do it either. So that's my opinion, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then fucking crack on, Caradron Overlords. To be honest, I think you're all dicks anyway. So whatever. Like, do what you like. Like, okay. Good. James, have you been okay? What have you been up to? Done anything fun? Any Warhammer at all?
Not really. So I have reassembled a bunch of armies to work out what I'm doing. Me and Nathan, just before we started, we're kind of debating. Obviously, we're starting to see events put dates in the calendar.
Yep.
So I suddenly realised that I've painted most of that Skaven army, but not all of it.
That's the worry.
So now I need to finish that army because it's a very good So the whole army has been written, much to your displeasure, I'm sure, Rob, that it probably won't win many games, but will be very easy to kind of sit, have a chat, roll some dice, and have a nice day.
How dare you? We're a narrative channel.
Oh, that is true.
That's all I'm actually here for, I'll have you know.
But I also realised, because there is some bells in it, that there's various things the bell does. So, like, when you roll. So what I thought is, do I need to buy, 8 different types of bell?
Correct.
And have one for, each thing? And that'll be it. So I might do that.
You do. And they need to have a number written on them. So, you have, a set of bells that, getting progressively larger. And you write them. So, 1 is, ding, 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 ding. 10 is, dong. Yeah. Super into that. Yeah. Good. Someone's asked what's the list, but it doesn't really matter because James has written it, so it will be terrible. And that's the good part about it. Yeah?
That's me.
James, what's in the list? Go on, tell us what's in the list.
It's basically just some bells and some clan rats.
Perfect. Not thought about... Go on.
Oh, it's 3 bells. 3 squads of 40 clan rats. 3 ratlingans, a warlock bombardier, and 2 big warpstone cannon things.
Okay. What lightning cannons?
That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. Well, maybe next week we could look at the competitive Skaven stuff for you.
Sure. Okay. Probably not going to change it, but yeah. If I roll a 12, it's good fun.
All right. So let's move on to news. Shall we? And the hot topic before anyone screams anymore. They've announced they've shown a Be'lakor model, a brand new big Be'lakor, and Broken Realms Be'lakor. BLA Core. Swellakor, I've heard someone call him. Biglakor is another one I've already seen. A lot of people are loving this model. Nathan, first off, what do you think of Big Baby Be'lakor?
He's got a suitable amount of chains and rings. I don't know how he can fly with them, but I mean, I guess it's magic, so yeah. Yeah, I mean, it looks like a big demon guy, so I guess it does what it says on the tin.
It does. Yeah, nailed it. James, what are your feelings on this? Twitch chat, what are your feelings?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's cool. I think it'll be interesting to see, obviously, like, at the minute, he's quite a big staple in people's Slaves to Darkness armies, isn't he? And obviously, at the minute, he's on a tiny little base, and he's a tiny little guy, and he's definitely now not a tiny little base or a tiny little guy. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with his rules, his points, how he works, because I think it will have a lot of effect on people's lists. So I think that's probably more exciting than the model to me.
So, okay, all right, that's fair. So we've got loads of things to unpack about this. Number one, let's talk about the Broken Realms book before we talk about the model. Broken Realms Be'lakor has been announced. It's very rare that we get to know that there's another book. We're coming dangerously close to having a roadmap for Age of Sigmar. Dangerously close. This is very similar to when you get lost in a city and then you ask a guy out the window and you're like, excuse me, mate, do you know where this thing is? And he's just like, yeah, this way. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left. It's almost that good as directions. We're like very close to knowing what the hell's going on. But it's a bit weird that we got an announcement of Broken Realms Be'lakor before we've even had the opportunity to get Broken Realms tech list, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's in that weird thing, isn't it? I know, like, we talked about it last week where they kind of said, oh, we're doing this. This is the plan. This is what our roadmap, like, well, not our roadmap. Oh, we had a roadmap. It's been changed.
Yeah.
You don't know it, but we had one, and now it's different.
Yeah, well, I'm actually very, like, narratively, for tech lists, like, whatever. Like, just if we get the tech list book out of the way, I'll read it. It's like eating my vegetables before I get to the meaty goodness, as a vegetarian, I'm obviously saying this, the meaty goodness of my corn sausage that is Be'lakor. Like, I'm very...
Be'lakor, you big vegetarian sausage, you.
But it's going to be so cool. Like, it's Be'lakor, man. He's going to have, like, it's going to be up to some shenanigans. He'll have, like, been, like, directing some, like, chaos dudes, do some chaosy things. Like, he'll be, like, getting all the demons together, and they'll be like, should we help the mortals out? And they'll be like, no, screw the mortals. We're made of magic. Let's go. Pixie power. And off they'll be going, like, doing magical demon stuff, throwing sparklers everywhere. Very excited for Be'lakor, like, inclusion. I think it's going to be very good. Yeah. I'm like really excited about Be'lakor. I think that's going to be cool. There are loads of questions as rules wise. I want to talk about that in a minute. But let's come back to the model. Okay, so I'm trying to be like, number one, it's a better Be'lakor model than the Be'lakor we already had, right? Super good.
Yep.
Thumbs. The chains and everything else. I'm just going to say, like, outright, that I don't really like the style. I'm trying to understand how to say this without someone being like, you've been negative, Rob. So I've given it some examples on the screen. Get ready. I don't like the style of the head and the torso. Generally, it feels like it's very blocky as opposed to organic. Am I making any sense?
He's from the 1970s. He's all about hard lines.
yeah. Like, that's just what I think. That's what I think. I just want to show you, like, a comparison, because our friend Vincey V, that's what I call him nowadays, old Vincey V. So he painted up the arch villain demon prints that, James, I know that you've printed out and I've printed out. Yeah. So he's printed that out. He's painted that out. I feel like that's more organic, if that makes sense. And maybe it's the fact that I've been looking at this demon prints for a while. Yeah. The demon prints by arch villain. So this is the one that I'm showing on the screen now. Like, I think it looks great. And I look at the Be'lakor model and I'm like, it looks very inorganic, if that makes sense. Like, super blocky. And that's my, like, I'm not trying to say it's a horrible model in any way. I think it's obviously a very nice model. I just don't know if it's like the best demon prints model I've seen this year so far, is all I'm trying to get at. Does that make sense, James? You seen the difference between the two?
Yeah, I think like I looked at this earlier, and I feel like almost what they've done, because I think it looks cool, and I think with a cool paint job, it'll be a really wicked model to see on the table. But I think almost what they've done is tried to take, and I can't remember when that old model's from, but like they've basically made that little metal to or fine cast model big, haven't they? Like he's kind of doing the same pose. He's kind of got like the same body structure. The old one was quite angular. This one's quite angular.
And the Demon Princes that they do it angular as well. It could 100% be the paint scheme. I'm willing to admit that. And I'm not enough of a good painter to understand if it's the paint scheme that's making it look more blocky than you normally see it as, right? Like, and obviously they know how to do organics really well. Like the squigs are really rounded and very organic. And I know this is a bit of a deep dive on like a model reveal. And I think it looks really pretty. And like the people will be able to do some really cool stuff with it. I love the sword. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying, like, on my personal thing, I looked at it and I thought, oh, the head's a bit like, meh. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how I felt. Again, having looked at this model very recently from Vince.
So do you reckon with a head swap it would? Do you reckon with a head swap that would fix that, or do you think it's like the whole body is too?
It's the torso and the legs, right? The legs are like huge and chonky, and the body's quite small, and then the head's even smaller versus. I don't know. Like, I'm, again, trying very hard not to, like, I'm not, like, saying it's terrible. I'm just saying, like, you know, like, and it looks cool. It's a better Demon Prince. I'm going to use the other Demon Prince, the Archvillain one, as Be'lakor. And if anyone's got a problem with it, I'll be like, lol. you sound like a nerd. That's what I'll say to them. I'll say it right to their face, yeah, as I flip them off and I walk out and buy myself some frazzles. That's what I'll say. Yeah.
Frazzles. Keep them frazzles down, your boy.
Right, so I love him and I'll fight you over your negativity. It's not negativity, it's constructive analysis. That's what it is. I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm saying it's really nice. The base is cool. That's fine.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because loads of people are now saying that they think the paint job on the 40k one is better.
Yeah, I actually thought that. The paint job on the 40k one is better. Yeah, 100%. I would, or it's different at least. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
He's jazzed up more too, I think. The 40k one looks jazzier.
Yeah.
But it might be that Primaris Lieutenant on the base. It might just be the look. It might be because he's in Spec.
Look, even though I tried to bring examples of other things that I liked in preference, apparently I'm still being a Mardy bitch. Fine. It looks brilliant. Take it, you bunch of pricks. Yeah, it looks brilliant, of course. That'll be my entire... Oh, he's got a sword that's on fire. It's amazing. How could I ever say anything different? Oh, has he got horns? Actually... No, don't worry. He's got horns, James. It's perfect in every way, in every shape. It's got claws. Stop me now. I can't believe how good it is.
To be fair, he's not Khorne, right? Is he in Khorne?
What?
Is he in Khorne? He's not just Khorne, is he?
He's perfect in all ways. He's absolutely brilliant. I can't wait for the next model to come out, which will also be perfect. I'm so glad we've had this conversation. My convo is actually next, if you guys are interested. I don't think I'm interested anymore in any talks. Is talking about Be'lakor's actual rules. So he's obviously got beefier. Let's look at his current rules, because he's right now one of the best picks in Age of Sigmar. He's one of the best allies you can choose. He's one of the best units you can choose in Age of Sigmar. He's like 11 out of 10. He. Do they describe him as he? I'm not sure on his pronouns. I need to check. But like really, really good. His current rules are 12-inch move, 8 wounds with a 4-up save. Yeah. And he's like ethereal, so that 4-up save is unrendable, which is really, really good. Yeah. Perfect rules. Be'lakor is like flawless. Rules perspective, Be'lakor is like muchos French kiss, if you want. What are you laughing at, James and Nathan? Go on.
You're French kissing that beautiful Be'lakor. That's great.
Yeah. I was laughing at Cage Red in the chat, who was just like, I'm going to get the old model and put it on a big base.
Yeah, man.
Because I also like the fact they're still selling that old model today. They've released a new one, still on sale.
Yeah. It's as Games Workshop said to the base, it's perfect. Thanks to you, Flynn. Agreed. Of course. That's how we analyze things now. His rules are perfect. We should just move on. Never look. Right. Anyway, He's bigger, but that doesn't matter. Let's talk about it now. He's got 8 wounds with a 4-up save. And he's a 2-cast wizard and unbinds 2 spells. Very, very good. He's somewhere between the casting value of an Arc Regent and who else is a 2-cast wizard? Tree Lord Ancient. Tree Lord Ancient. No, that's a 1-cast wizard, even though it's big. Hold on. James, can you think of other 2-cast wizards?
Screaming Bell.
Scragrot the Loon King.
Perfect. 2-cast wizards, absolutely in there. Not a Tree Lord Ancient, though.
Enchantress and Unicorn.
Oh, dear God. Please don't bring up legends. Oh, my God. Vermilord is a 2-cast wizard. I was mainly going to go down some sort of gag where I brought up loads of really innocuous things that for some reason were 2-cast wizards, but I didn't have the brain power to do it. Anyway, and he's got an amazing spell. Cast on a 6, you pick an enemy unit within 18 inches, you get +1 to wound against it, which is wicked. Really great spell. Really, really good. So, he's great, and that's great. He's got Shadow Form, which is the ignores ethereal, and then he's got Lord of Torment, and if an enemy unit fails a battle shock test while it's within 10 inches, he heal up to D3 wounds allocated to this model, which is pretty cool. So he can heal as well, right, on that 8 wounds. But I guess the reason that he's so important in competitive Age of Sigmar, or as we like to call it now, narrative Age of Sigmar, is the Dark Master rule, which is after setup is complete, but before the first battle round begins, secretly pick 1 enemy unit on the battlefield. Once per battle, at the start of the enemy hero phase, you can reveal which unit you picked. Until your next hero phase, your opponent must roll a dice each time the unit attempts to cast a spell, move, charge, or attack with any weapons it's armed with. On a 5+ you can do it, but on a 1 to 4 you can't. It's so good. We saw it used to incredible effect in the first game this weekend of the live coverage, Battle of Copenhagen. We just had a Cow Mountain man do nothing for 2 whole turns because it lasts from until your next. So it starts at your enemy's hero phase until your next hero phase. So if they have a double, then they could have a unit do almost nothing for 2 turns. Now that unit, so some specifications. That unit has to be on the board, and Be'lakor has to be on the board. But even if Be'lakor's slain before you use it, you can still get to use it. It's really good. Really good. Have you ever played against it, Nath?
Not in that form. I did play against it once when you had to roll a 5-up, was it, to do anything? Or so, yeah, that's the rule, isn't it? Yeah, I played against it once. Yeah, it was all right. I don't mind. I mean, I don't think it's the most fun rule, but it's all right. It wasn't that bad. I guess it's just for a turn, but
it's so good though. If you're playing with it, it's so useful. It's so useful.
Yeah, it's a proper threat. And especially as the game's only 5 turns long, so yeah, and not all of those turns get played, so yeah, pretty good.
It's true. They really don't. They really don't. So yeah, it's really, really useful. It's used to stop things like Archeon builds. That's the thing. Hearthguard Berserker blocks. A whole bunch of stuff that's really scary, or even just some sort of key piece in the right situation. It's just very, very good. So what do we think that the upgraded version of this is going to look like? So Lord of Change currently is at 14 wounds. Do you think we might see a 14 wound Be'lakor with a 4-up ethereal save?
They do seem to be giving everything a lot more wounds. And he's a much bigger boy, so you'd expect him to have a load more wounds.
Yeah, me too. I think that. His sword, the Blade of Shadow, 6 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 1, 2 damage. So he's pretty beefy in a fight as well. I actually expect his damage to go up a little bit as well. I'm expecting a bit of rend 2, damage 3. But we'll see, because he's got a beefier sword at the end of the day, but you never know. It might just be like a Mega Gargant. He might have 18 attacks, 4s and 2s, rend 1, 1 damage. Who knows how it's going to go. It could go anyway.
Depends how fast he's swinging his arm.
Exactly, yeah. 14 wounds, I can definitely see that. I think he's definitely going to keep the Shadow Form rule. I think he's still going to keep the Dark Master rule as well. I think we're going to see that. Hawkeye in the chat isn't a fan. He thinks that needs to be changed a little bit. Wargaming Dad has suggested it goes to a 6. Maybe. What do you guys think?
Well, no. If it was a 6, it should be a 4-up or something like that, or it should just get
50%.
chucked in the bin. Give them a fun rule. It's a bit of a boring rule.
Also, I think one of the important points I think saw Pete put in the chat is you're going to want to keep him below 400 points because you're going to want to include him in other armies. Yeah, I think that's really fun. So is it a negative play experience? It's an interesting piece. Like ultimately, I wouldn't want many armies or units to have this, but do I like that it exists in the game? I think I do. I think that it's a good, interesting piece, and it's a nice counterpoint to like large Death Starry bricks or mega pieces. I think in the game, James, what do you think? Do you think this should be in there? Do you think it would be negative to play against?
Yeah. No, I think there's certain rules in the game, like Marathi's, like this one, almost like Teclis just choosing what he casts on and how many he casts. Like I think there's certain rules to those certain big character models that have like a huge cost that just add like an interesting point to the game. Like generally speaking, you're paying an absolute ton of points when they do it. I think there's some interesting things to it. I think like this one's interesting that if you kill him, he still gets to do it. Like maybe that shouldn't be in there because it basically means you're like, like it makes him more of a target. But I also think it'll be really interesting because I think they could change that and make him beefier. Because I also think at the minute he's like, I can't think how many points he is. Do we know how many points he is?
You're gonna hate when you find this out. I can't wait. Nathan, do you know how many points Be'lakor is?
No, but I bet he's probably too cheap. Where's the thing? Where's the computer machine that tells you the answers? Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Do you guys know how many points he is now?
Yeah, so I think like at
no, tell me.
He's 240 points now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's a very hard. That's the problem with a rule like that, is that it's a very hard rule to put points to, because it's so different to the other rules. It's quite hard to compare with other stuff. So, my gut reaction is that's way too cheap. But there you go.
I think
240 is really good. Thanks to Hail Hydra for donating £5 to the show, by the way. Appreciate you loads. Thanks you for the cool viewing. Go on, James, what are you saying?
I think it's a weird one, isn't it? Because if he died and then he couldn't cast it, I think 240 points is probably right. Yeah. I think you're not too far off.
The Dark Master ability is just automatic.
Yeah, but what I mean is like if once you'd killed him, it couldn't be used anymore. I think actually 240 points isn't too bad. A 4-up save, 8 wounds. You could literally nuke him in a turn.
He can die. Like definitely can die. Go on.
Oh, I just think the fact that he can then not be on the board, be dead, and still use that ability. That's where it's terrifying.
Yes. Yeah. Be'lakor can be dead, so maybe making it so that Dark Master is tied to Be'lakor being alive would make you a little bit more fragile. But don't forget, he's going to go up wounds, James. I expect that 14 wounds is going to be there with a 4-up. There's a couple of questions. Are we going to see him Are we going to see him as part of a larger demon force? Because if you go back to the Wrath of the Everchosen, we've got Legion of Chaos Ascendant, which is all the demons mixed together, and there's also the Dark Prince. So Be'lakor himself has got his own detachment. That'll be really interesting to see whether or not we end up with a new kind of like whole army with Be'lakor, and Be'lakor's just like, I'm chaos on my own, demons only. That'll be fun. I'm not sure.
So does he not actually? I don't know much about his lore. Does he not actually follow a specific god then?
No. So like the old school is Be'lakor was the I think he was the first Chaos Chosen. Like so you know how Archeon has been blessed by all the gods.
Yeah.
Be'lakor was on the drive to do that. Is that right? Or is the first Demon Prince? Something like that. That was the kind of story at the start. And then has always been jealous of Archeon ever since, and he's trying to he wants to be like the big granddaddy, but he isn't the big granddaddy basically. So yeah, he was the Ever Chosen before Archeon, basically, but he failed, and then because of that, he's now like not blessed by any gods, so he's undivided.
I think it'd be super cool to see them change his narrative rules a bit. So if they bump up his points, bump up his wounds, and make him a big hitter, like him and Archeon are never in the same army, I think.
Maybe that would be cool. I would like if there was like a jealousy rule on his war scroll, so like him and Archeon could never be included in the same army. I think that would be really sweet. Yeah.
Don't want to hang out.
Yeah. I think that would be super fun, and I'd like to see that. I would like to see more demon stuff underneath him, some demon stuff undivided. How do you guys feel about the fact that we got? It wasn't too long ago that we ended up with the Slaves to Darkness starter box, which is the Chaos Karkadrak Lord. And we also ended up with the Slaves to Darkness book. So it was about a year, like almost 2 years ago, year and a half ago. I do wonder if Be'lakor's been sat in a box waiting since then and was meant to be part of like a big release during that time. But maybe not. But I don't know if it necessarily keys into there being more Slaves to Darkness stuff. I don't think that's going to be the case.
More chariots.
Because he likes chariots.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Big fan. Used to fit in the back of one.
I doubt he was due to go with the Slaves to Darkness, because obviously his war scroll, like you say, I don't think the war scroll matches his model. So I doubt, wounds wise and all of that. So I doubt that the war scroll that we got in the Chaos Undivided and all of that would be the same one.
So, and you still can't buy Chaos Warriors Knights outside that box. Good point, Desert Sketch. So one of the questions I'm going to ask the Twitch chat, James and Nathan, I'm going to ask you both. Twitch chat, same question. Where would you like Be'lakor to come in at? Obviously, we're in the situation where we know that there are two different rules writers. Yeah? You got the Ogre Mortars book, obviously brilliant book, written by Games Workshop, so therefore obviously brilliant. Yeah? And then you've got the Seraphon book, and as we know, equally as brilliant and the same. But even though I know it's weird when they're both equally brilliant and perfect, it's weird that they feel like they're done by different authors. So my question is, who do you want to do the book? Do you want it to be the bin guy or the sin guy? Do you want it to be a pretty model with brilliant but somehow rubbish rules, or brilliant but somehow over the top rules? James, where you pitching it?
I'd like Nathan to write it. But I think
going with the bin guy. Good man.
I think it's probably it's due a sin, because the Slaves book was probably not.
Okay, that's fine. Nathan, where do you want it pitched at?
I'll go with the bin guy, because I actually quite like those rules being a bit more chilled out.
Okay, all right. So
but more challenging, shall we say?
All right, my follow-up is: where do you want Be'lakor pitched at? Do you want Be'lakor pitched at like usable, like he is now, at that kind of like lower points bracket, like a support piece, kind of interesting, or do you want them Gotrek level? Do you want him like smiting whole armies? Archeon, Gotrek sort of tier. That's my next question, because that's also another question which I think is quite interesting, where you actually want Be'lakor to come in. Do you want Be'lakor to be like something you kind of include in an army, or do you want it to be a centerpiece that you build an army around? No. James, over to you.
I want him to have exactly the same rules, but be on a base 3 times the size. Same points, same rules, bigger model, because he shouldn't be bent. Like when they made that Gotrek model, and I saw it was coming, I was like, he has to be bent, because that narratively makes sense. Okay. Be'lakor failed. He failed loads of times.
Well, I remember actually reading the Gotrek End Times book, and Be'lakor was running away from Gotrek. So Be'lakor can't be as hardcore as Gotrek, not in a million years, because he's scared of him.
Okay, that's fair.
And
that's fair.
Yeah, every time he meets him on the battlefield, he should just have to leave.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right, fine. I obviously want him to be brilliant, and he obviously, when he comes out, will be perfect in all ways, and flawless, of course, with no criticisms from me. Lovely. All right, sweet. Twitch chat. Let me just see what the guys in the Twitch chat are saying. Deeks Duo says Archeon tier would be awesome. Sorry again thinks he should be God tier. What else is being said?
Dudardé has the best point.
What?
Dudardé has said he wants him as strong as a L'Oreal.
Wow, that's mean.
No, L'Oreal's God. He can't be that strong. He's not God. He's just a prince.
So Jim Inkpen, I think, makes maybe the best point here so far. I want him more Hero Hammer. I don't want more Hero Hammer. Keep him relatively cheap and able to neuter God tier models. I think that's the kind of fun play with Be'lakor's Dark Master ability, is that he is able to neuter those big point models. We're all sick of people running the Corn Dragon in our face and smashing us to pieces. It annoys me how incredibly good that is as everything else. And so having some sort of fun and interactive counterplay like the Dark Master ability, I think, is useful, ultimately.
But I hate that stuff in my... I can't even joke about it. I don't want a Corn Dragon. Boring. Boring. Carry on. I'm sorry I interrupted. Please continue.
His size implies he's got centerpiece status. I think he's going to be a centerpiece model. I think it would be nice to see him as a centerpiece model and not play this sort of support role that we see him as. So yeah, I think having him. Go on, Nath.
Sorry, if he gets a book like what's her face, the snake lady, Marathi, and Kane, then he's going to be. You would think he would get similar rules to those couple of twats. So yeah.
What is your problem with? Also, great opportunity for us to just say a big shout out to all the women in our lives on International Women's Day.
Yeah. Oh, any opportunity you get to slag off an elf, you should take it with both hands. And
Diamond
some
hands.
of your feet. Stupid elves. Yeah. So yeah. You would expect him to be on the same sort of. I mean, they're on a similar level, aren't they? Those two numpties. So you would expect him to be, again, he's getting a book, so maybe he ascends to another level of Demon Princehood, and so he's going to end up with maybe godlike abilities, and also be like all of those other, like a stupid elf. Whatever.
Imagine you get called into the Demon Prince sort of office, and they're like, "What?" So they're like, "All right, boss, what's going on?" It's like, "Well, you've been doing really well recently. I've been really proud of you. So actually, we're going to make you a Demon Prince level 2. So you're going to go up a pay bracket, which is super nice. We're going to give you over 8 skulls a day now for you to do with what you want. And if you want, you can hang them off these fancy chains you've got on your wings."
These aerodynamic chains you've got on your wings.
Okay, good. All right, yeah. So I like to see him as a centerpiece model. Maybe we'll see him as a centerpiece model. Maybe we won't. The model's great and perfect and flawless, of course. All right.
I'm glad you think so. It's important.
Of course. Like, I can't change my mind. Right. So I kind of want it to be more than 400 points, says Pete. So I don't want to have to sell a kidney to buy him as an option for my Nurgle army. Super fair. That makes loads of sense. He'll go up a tax bracket, though. Might not be worth it again. Go to level 2 Demon Prince. No one wants that.
I agree. Yeah, you don't want to go up a tax bracket. That national insurance payment.
His national insurance must be fucking through the roof.
Liability insurance on a Demon Prince is going to be wild anyway, so he's paying through the nose. Reflex Dog Training, thanks for resubscribing, and thanks everyone for watching. They are pushing out big years so they can slap on that big price tag, of course. Right, so what are we talking about next? News. Other news, and other news is that there is events started to pop up around the world, specifically around the local Midlands region. There's a couple of events that have asked me to do a shout out, so I'm doing it like the good boy I am. If you would like to go to these events, they're good events, even though one has never ran, so I don't know how it could be a good event without having ever ran, but like it is, and it will be perfect. I spoke with the TO earlier. I said, what makes your event good? He went, it'll be cool. I'm there. Yeah, I'm there. It's
Me
called
too.
He's a salesman, that guy is. Fucking hell.
Yeah, I know. That's by Mr. Mark Wildman. So the War in the Heartlands or Winter in the Heartlands or something. Nathan, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's called War in the Heartlands, but that Yeah, great. Yeah. I had a ticket, but COVID.
Yeah, let's go to that one. Let's go to
Yeah.
that one. Are we all going?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
in Leicester. It's fucking hell. It's my local now.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
we can all
moved.
stay at Nathan's house.
Hey, can we stay at your house?
Yeah.
Is there a
Come and
good?
stay
Is
at
there
my
a,
house.
is there a good? Is there a good night out that we can go to after?
Yeah, I'm sure we can make a good night out for you after.
I'm not asking you to make one. I'm not asking you to specifically create a nightclub and therefore choose the music policy and the drinks pricing. It's difficult, Nath. Like, are you going 65% on the fucking drinks? Like, what are you doing? What's your markup? Don't do that. That's a lot of effort. Just put us to where people have already made a good night. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If there's any left.
Let's go.
Okay, all right, let's go. All right, so we go to it. War in the Heartlands is what it's called, or something. I know the TO. He's all right. Like,
Knife in the Heartlands, I think someone said it was good.
Is it called that?
Who knows? It's something in the Heartlands. It's Mark Waldman. Mark the Beastman on Twitter.
Yeah, I'd go to it, probably. Listen, if I wasn't doing the coverage for it, I'd go to it. Because I like Mark. He's all right. Like, probably. Like, and then there's Bobo. Bobo is now 2 100 people events, not 1 200 person of event. James, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know how John's going to keep up his momentum for 2 whole weekends on the trot. And then he's doing some weird, like, Masters thing at some weird place. Never heard of it.
Terrible place. I wouldn't go. Nathan, how do you feel about there being 2 Bobos?
That sounds fun. Yeah, I mean there was 2 Bobos before. One was a Crim Bobo and then a normal Bobo. So now I assume we're going to have 4 Bobos really, because he's going to do 2 Crim Bobos as well.
Is he doing? Wait. So what's? Let's do that.
Nathan's just making this up on the spot.
Nathan, have you just announced 2 more events? Are we doing 2 more events? Twin
Yeah,
Bobo.
let's do it. John says there's also going to be 2 Crim Bobos. In fact, they're the best ones, so he's going to make 4 Crim Bobos because they're doubles. So.
And you've got to spend 2 meters apart from your fucking doubles partner.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. No, one half of the double plays on one weekend, and the other half of the double plays on the other weekend, and then the top 4 of the doubles plays against the other 4 of the other doubles, and then the doubles can play against themselves, and then that's it.
I hope John Green's in here and he's just found out he's doing about 9 more events.
My favourite thing is the naming convention now, because it's not Bobo, it's actually now 2 different events. One's called Bo, and the other one's called Bo as well. Yeah, and that's... or is a doubles Bobo called Bobo. Who knows? Who knows? But if you are having events somewhere in the world, let us know. We are eventually going to do like an event show and talk about the events we're going to be at for event coverage and events that, like, whatever. But that'll be something we do in the future. Like, look, there's going to be some fun ones. Just get out there. Like, if it's safe to do so, of course, get out there, have some fun. Just be conscious, be, like, healthy, look after each other, love each other, all that other stuff. Fucking hell. Can't be asked. Right,
Do you want to go to Bobo?
I do want to go there. I really do. I really do. It's going to be so good. Would Swiss Perrins Bobo be Bobo Selector? For God's sakes. God's sakes.
I wonder how many people are going to go to the wrong Bobo.
What the fuck do you mean? I'm not meant to be at this Bobo.
Oh, tons. I reckon 50% of people will go to the wrong one, and 50% will be so drunk from the first one they'll turn up to the second one without realising a week's gone.
I think it's day 2, yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus. I'm looking
That's
forward
what he
to
should
it.
do. One day, have the first day of the first Bobo, and then the next day have the second day of the second Bobo, and then have the second day of the first Bobo, and then the first day of the second Bobo.
I'm with Nathan.
Time
I'm
to
with
recover.
Nathan.
I'm with
Can we get
Nathan
John
too.
in? Can we call John in here and just have him on?
No, fuck him. Like, we've talked about
already.
his event. That's all he needs. Honestly though, one of the things about John and Mark, like, is a good thing to bring up is they both super care about the community and they want people to have a fun time. Like, being competitive events is really a subsidiary to people having a fun time, and I think that's something that sometimes gets lost at events. I'll never forget being shouted at to put my rubbish away at Adepticon, even though I hadn't put any rubbish on the floor or something, and thinking, oh, you sound like a twat, I'll never listen to you again. Like, that's what I thought. And you know what? John hasn't treated me like that, so that's fine. He's treated Nathan terribly, but that's a whole different conversation. That's for Nathan to fight his own battle on. You're a grown-up, Nathan. Yeah.
I don't know. I've had a few treats out of him.
Yeah, that's true. Right, okay. Yeah. And there's also that, what is it called? War in the Heartlands? Who cares? Something. You should go. That Liam Jordan's there. I like him. He's alright. And Mark Wildman, probably. Whatever. Right, so let's get to the main point of the show.
I thought that was the main point of the show.
This isn't the main point of the show. This is all the bit that Scriv has to clip out before we get onto this. Otherwise, someone coming over from like one of the other YouTubers is like, "What am I listening to?" I'm so confused.
Before we go any further, can we just discuss that in the chat they've been discussing that Nottingham is the centre of bow crime, and that's where Bobo is this year, and so it should be called No Bobo, and that's my favourite one. Thank you. I don't even know. Jordacted. Whatever it is. No Bobo. That's what I want.
No Bobo. No bows allowed. Right, okay, so today's show, first time we're going to go through this. This will be an interesting endeavour, and we'll see what you guys think. We are going to talk about the units in a Tzeentch force, and basically what the units that you would normally see in a Tzeentch list look like, and why you see them in the lists and how they work. And if you come up against them, what you are expecting to see. Zaddy guy, thanks so much for resubscribing. So that's the idea. Like, so we'll talk about them because some people don't know why. Me and James sort of talked about before the show. I was like, James, change host. Why is it good? And you were like, it's there or something. Like, so the idea is to learn as a group what these war scrolls and what some of these things do and why they're so strong and why they're so powerful. And then also maybe you'll be better prepped and armed to play against them in a narrative capacity at tournaments in some ways. Right, before we go any further, Nathan, just off the top of your head, you got any thoughts about the strengths of Tzeentch when you play against them and why they might be strong?
So, if you're playing against Tzeentch, you're sort of expecting them to have magical dominance. They're supposed to be really good with the old magics, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And you're also expecting them to have those sodding destiny dice. So they have the opportunity to make some reliable decisions in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So long distance charges, battle shockers, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
These are the sort of things you're expecting. And then also, so units that you're watching out for, obviously horrors as just for being objective grabbers and acting like anvils, really. And then their main damage output coming from flamers and magic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. James, have you got any thoughts?
Not other than, I don't think other than Nathan. I think Nathan was actually comprehensive today. He beat me to it. Normally I beat him to it. So I'm gonna give Nathan
that's
that one.
fair. All right, so we're going to talk about some of the things. I would actually probably say, Nate, that like magic dominance isn't really, I wouldn't say definite for Tzeentch. Like it's not. I would go on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you can't really say dominance because there's not very many dominant wizards out there other than like Nagash and Teclis, but they are strong at magic. The Lords of Change being able to flip the dice thing is a really strong mechanic. But I mean, you you do want to still have other wizards in the game that are strong, and then like a weaker cadre. So you've got strong wizards, like you'd expect a real souped-up goblin wizard that's really done loads of mushrooms to be able to really push through a spell occasionally. So, but he's still struggle against somebody like Teclis or Nagash, which is fair enough. But so you would expect them maybe to be on a similar level to like a Lord of Change or something like that. So in my mind, they're strong, but they're not like Nagash level because he's a god, and they're not gods. It's just demons.
Yeah, like it's kind of I think it's fascinating when you think about the Tzeentch army in some ways. Is that like it feels counterintuitive in some ways to what you might think, and a whole bunch of the stuff is trash. Like, and I won't obviously, and also perfect somehow at the same time. So I won't go into those perfect war scrolls. We'll just focus on the more perfecter war scrolls that generally see play at events. And there are two overriding builds that we see fairly commonly recently. Obviously, we're recording this March 2021, so maybe this will change when FAQ points changes or whatever. But right now, at the moment, two sort of dominant builds. And those are Change Host going into one of the sub-factions. So Change Host is a War Scroll battalion and everything that's going inside it. Or we tend to see Hos Arcanum Archeon. Those are the two builds that we roughly kind of see for a couple of different reasons. Which is fine. Like, that's exciting, I guess. Yeah. And we've seen them do very, very well. In fact, Change Host just won this weekend. And then the Archeon one has become a little bit more like new and cool.
Is it the hipster list?
It's not that hipster. I just think it's so reliable and it's super aggressive. So that's genuinely what I see. But we get to talk about the most fun war scroll in all of Age of Sigmar right now. And if anyone doesn't agree, fight me in the comments. But truly, I won't read them, so don't bother. Just having one of those days. Right, the Horrors of Tzeentch is the thing that we'll talk about first. Right?
Cool.
Now, they're 220 points for 10 pink horrors. And what do you get for 10 pink horrors? Well, you get 1 wound with a 6-up save, so not very reliable. They move 5 inches, and they're bravery 10. Now, they've got a magical flame shooting attack, which is 12 inches, so they've got a 17-inch threat range. And if you've got 10 pink horrors alive, 3 shots apiece. Right? 3 shots apiece. They hit on 5s, but they have a spell that they can cast for themselves, that allow them to turn that into 4s. So 30 shots, 4s and 4s, no rend, damage 1. Yeah? Which is
having a great day.
Huh?
Having a great day.
Having a great day. Having a super great day. So, that's decent for, a unit that's... And then in combat, they've got an attack each, unless they go down to brims, in which case they'd have 2 attacks each, and 5s and 4s. Now, the main thing about these is that they explode. So, James, you know how many wounds is in a brick of 10 pink horrors?
50.
50, yeah. So 220 points for 50 wounds, actually, as opposed to 220 points for 10 wounds, which is kind of the key point. Nathan, how many points for 60 grots?
360.
Yeah. So, you get, amazing value out of this unit, amazing. The key point there is that every time you kill a pink horror, it explodes into a blue horror. 2 blue horrors, and then every time a blue horror dies, it turns into a brim. That's what we're seeing at the moment. And then you just keep blowing them up. Now, the pink horrors have a 6-up DPR, of course, and there are quite a few ways to buff these guys, which is, really, really scary. And then also they've got Nathan, we're going to talk about this a lot over the next few weeks. They've got a command squad. Do you want to talk to him about that?
Yeah, so they got an iridescent dude. So he's their boss, their champion. And just pull up his war scroll here. Horrors of Tzeentch. So the iridescent fella, he gets +1 attack, and that's about it. 2 is melee, not 2 is shooting. Then they also have a horn blower, because all demons need a good horn to blow. And in fact, 1 in every 10 could be a hornblower. Whereas only 1 can be an iridescent fella. And so the hornblower says if anybody's within 6 and they roll a 1, they have to re-roll the battle shock for that. Quite cool. And then the icon bearer, this is the proper knob of the bunch. So 1 in every 10 of them can be an icon bearer. And if you roll a battle shock of a 1, you return D6 slain models to the thing, and no more models flee from the unit either. So
yeah. So I mean, this is amazing. So the key point, obviously, if you're playing Tzeentch, or if you've never played with Tzeentch before, you get to roll 9 dice at the start of the game, and then you get to choose results for that. One of those you can use for battle shock tests, and you can choose a 1, and you can get D6 pink horrors back. Each pink horror is worth 5 wounds. Each pink horror. So if you manage to get 6 back, super fun times. That's 30 wounds back into your army.
And how many points did you say there were for 10?
220 points.
Yeah. So that's probably slightly on the cheap side if you compare it to other things for a similar wound.
Absolutely. Yeah, agreed. Now, there's a whole bunch of other things to break down here. Number 1, the spell that they cast to give them +1 to hit for their shooting attack is cast on 6. However, they get +1 to cast if they're within 12 inches of friendly demon heroes, Tzeentch demon heroes. And they're almost always in front of them because they're the screens. They're just like, cool, I'm here. And the other thing is that they're -1 to hit because they're a Tzeentch demon if they're in range of a Tzeentch demon hero. So they're actually 220 points that are -1 to hit and +1 to cast generally. Although if they end up being teleported across the board, then they're their own thing. But yeah, they're really, really good. Now I know loads of people are watching and are like, I don't really need to know that they're good, but you do need to know how good they are. Go on, James, what is it?
I'm just laughing at the chat saying that's Battle Tomes page 52.
If you guys don't want to do this, we can fucking turn it off. Like, I don't care. I just thought this would be a fun thing to do. I thought it would be useful.
You calm down. Don't be an angry professor.
Quite often they'll be at +2 to hit, won't they, with their shooting? So their shooting's pretty good, really. 3s and 4s.
Really good.
Yeah.
4s and 4s. 4s and 4s.
No, well, it's going to be 3s and 4s a lot of the time, isn't it? Because they get +1 if there's more than 20 in the thing, and then +1 for their spell.
Or if they have more than 20, where's that?
Models.
Where's the +20?
Flickering flames.
Oh, add 1 to the hit rolls made for this unit while this unit has 20 or more models. It's quite rare that you'll end up with that though. Like, yeah, because so that you only get the +1 to hit if it's cast by the pink horrors, and the pink horrors can only cast a spell if they've got 9 models in the unit, right? Yeah. And then if they don't, then they get that natural +1 to hit. So you genuinely don't do the double.
Okay.
So
what's the maximum size the unit can go up to?
30, 20, or 30?
20 now, I think, is it?
20. Yeah.
I will make sure, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 20 is the cap now.
So 20 would be 440 points.
Yeah, 440 points, 60 shots that you would have in the unit, and then that would be 100 wounds of pink horror, like, to get through. It's a brick wall. It really is. It's amazing. So talking about the output, probably like so we'll talk. So that's the horrors. Now, because they've got magical flames as their shooting attack, where they go into. So if you just want them to block your enemy, because you've got kind of like 2 ways to use this unit really well. If you take them into sub-factions, you've got Eternal Conflagration sub-faction, which gives you rend on all of those shooting attacks, right? So you can have rend on all of them, or you can take them in the Host Duplicitous, and you can't retreat from the unit.
So be there all day.
That's exactly the reaction that you would do if you played against them. You had 20 pink horrors, you teleported them across the board, or you just ran them across the board. You'd be like, I've got to fight these now all day. Yeah, it's going to be rough.
But they do have happy faces, so...
They do have happy faces. The no retreat version, so you normally see horrors, pink horrors in 10s. You don't often see them like in 20s. When you do, it's normally in Host Duplicitous in competitive builds, and specifically because their job is just to tank the enemy for the rest of time, because that's 100 wounds at -1 to hit for 440 points. Obviously, you've got a demon hero nearby, which is pretty impressive. You're also doing, like we talked about before, 60 shots out of that unit, which is... again, quite a lot. Yeah, they're really good. They're really good. We should talk about ways to make them like better, though, because I think that's worth talking about and what people do. And that's going to take us on to the next War Scroll, which is the Fate Master. That's right. He's an old Finecast model, James. So I know you'll be happy about that. Yeah,
just what I've always wanted. Something that comes broke. Oh, sorry, I said that. No, sorry, Games Workshop make him. He must be great. Sorry.
He's flawless in all ways. You should not talk about ways. You should talk about ways to make them worse, not ways to make them better. I'm so sorry, Coloru.
Oh my god, he's also quite expensive.
Who? The Fate Master?
Yeah.
Financially or points wise?
Financially.
Yeah.
It's an ugly model for 25 quid.
He's actually
great model. Great model.
One of the best models I've ever seen, in fact. Right, so the Fate Master is got 6 wounds with a 4-up save, and he moves 16 inches. He can fly. He gets to add 2 to save rolls for attacks made by melee weapons that target this model, unless that attacking unit is a monster. So you can end up on a 2-up armor save with this guy in combat. So he's really defensive, like if you want to be, with 6 wounds, which is pretty nice. Yeah, and he's got he's also got Soulbound Shield. Each time this model is affected by a spell or endless spell, roll a dice on a 4+, ignores it. But really, what you're looking at, or what you're looking for, is the command ability, which is the Lord of Fate. Use this command ability at the start of your hero phase. If you do so, you pick a friendly model with this command ability until your next hero phase. You can reroll hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Tzeentch units wholly within 9 inches.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're going to take 20, I'd be tempted to stick him in the one that gives them rend and fucking shove this lad there. Then it'd be 3s and 4s at rend 1. They wouldn't be I mean, they would still be tanky as fuck, but they'd be blending stuff as well.
They would do. You're right, because you would end up with 60 shots, hitting on 3s, rerolling. If you had a 20, normally it's just going to be 4s. I think the 10s are more useful because you end up with 30 shots if you wanted to. Reroll, hitting on 4s if you get the spell off, re-rolling to hit, and then wound on 4s, but with rend 1 if you take it in internal configuration. The Fate Master, like that command ability, really is the reason that the CP that's spent in the army is just spent on the Fate Master every turn. He needs to be he's like the huge force multiplier in the army. The reroll to hit for everyone within 9 inches brings us really nicely onto the Flamers of Tzeentch, who are pretty iconic at this point. James, what do you think of the model? That's my main question.
I like the old one that looked like a weird demon in a skirt. Do you remember the old one? Weird bird face, heavy metal thing. Still got some, I think, upstairs, like 4 that were in a Warhammer Quest box. They're okay. I think the Flamers. My problem with the Flamers, I think, is that if you look at the horrors, they're kind of like having a great day, kind of a bit comical, a bit of a laugh. I think like the Flamers look like they're having a bad day.
They look.
And I wish they were happier.
Yeah, they are pretty rough. I need to talk about that CP usage more in a moment. Nathan, like the Flamers, do you like how they look, or are you not bothered?
I mean, I'm not overly bothered by most of the demon stuff that's out there, so they're all right. I mean, they're just worms that are shooting out fire. Weird-looking worms as well.
I actually think that it's offensive I've had to paint these because they look awful. Obviously also perfect somehow at the same time. Now, these are a key piece in so many Tzeentch armies because actually, weirdly, output is a major issue in Tzeentch. We talked about the pink horrors and doing all their shots, but we talked about the best example. Quite often you're going to have 10 pink horrors who are just throwing 30 shots that are 5s and 4s, and then as they get wounded, you go down to brimstone horrors. It's just like, well, I've got like 30 random dice here that I'm going to throw at you, or 20 random dice, which is quite nice. But on 5s and 4s, you don't tend to get a lot through. Ultimately, like it's quite nice chip damage. But these guys are outrageous. They move 9 inches and they fly, but they've only got 2 wounds each and a 5-up save, so they are very, very fragile. You take them in units of 3, and if you have a Pyrocaster, which is the unit champ, that's an important point to note out, that it does have a unit champ, he gets an extra attack. Yeah. Now, they got 3 attacks base, 4s, so they hit on 4s, which is rough, wound on 3s, with no rend, and it does D3 damage. So it's mainly a shooting unit that's got an 18-inch range. And then you add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by this unit if it's targeting a unit with 10 or more models. If it's got 20 or more models, you add 2 to hit. So if I was shooting at Nathan's Grots, or I was shooting at your Clan Rats, James, I'd be hitting on 2s.
Nice.
Wound on 3s, but no rend, doing D3 damage. Now, if I was in Eternal Conflagration, where these guys are battle line, I get rend 1. Yeah, but if I don't, then I end up it's the same. I don't end up with that rend. There's no way to add that rend on. So that's that. But you also get to add +1 to hit if there's an Exalted Flamer nearby. That's the other point. So if there's an Exalted Flamer nearby, it's 3s and 3s, and then either rend or no rend, D3 damage. So like output wise, James, how do you feel about these guys?
Well, they're kind of one of the scary units, aren't they? They're like the unit people were scared of. But I think even then, like without buff, they're not particularly consistent. Like
4s, if they're just shooting at a monster, let's say, and they're not near an Exalted, it's 10 attacks hitting on 4, so it's half, and then you're getting 2 through, and against a 4-up save, you may be doing D3 damage. Really, what they do is they punk hordes or 10-man units like super well. Like, really good for that. And until you put a Fate Master nearby who can, don't forget, so once we use that command ability on that Fate Master, James, we're re-rolling all those to hits. So we could be hitting on 4s, re-rolling, or if we're shooting at 20 guys, we could be shooting on 2s, re-rolling. Really, really good. My question, actually, which I think is really relevant when we talk about some of the War Scrolls over the next few weeks, is, Nathan, that 18-inch range is pretty good for because you like to play a lot on melee armies, right?
Yeah.
And I know you also play Iron Drakes, which is 16 inches. You tend to find that 18/16-inch range is close. It's danger close.
18 inches is not as alright, again, because a lot of melee armies are only movement 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys are fine. If they sit at the 18-inch mark, they're safe from a next turn. I'd have to have a double turn before I can get into them. Whereas 16 inches is close enough for me to start worrying. So 18 inches is sort of that where the break point is, really. I think 18-inch range shot is pretty good. They've got to be happy with that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. But it's definitely dangerous. Like, I think one of the things that when you guys play against flamers in the future, because they move 9 inches and they shoot 18, so that's 27 inches threat. But if you can put something, so they have to move within that 18, and you've got the ability to go and get them after that. You know, you put something on an objective that they have to trade with. Like, having played with flamers quite a few times, I'm so cautious that they're going to get charged. I'm so worried that they're going to go get beat up that I spend most of the game looking to protect them, because as soon as you hit them, they're going to just fall away.
Yeah.
It's 6 wounds with a 5-up save. They do have a 5-up DPR in melee, though, which is kind of cool. Right, which is useful.
Yeah, they do tend to die pretty easy once you get hold of them. But, I mean, if you're shooting at even, like, movement 6 stuff, which is like fast infantry, if you're going at 17 inches, they've still got an 11-inch charge to get at you. So
yeah, of course, yeah. Like
whereas my fucking Iron Drakes, you know, that extra 2 inches is a bit of a thing. So yeah, I think 18 inches is fair. I wish more stuff was 18. I think 18 inches would be nice if that was regarded as long distance instead of all these bastards that can shoot 30 inches.
Agreed.
That's just
Agreed.
sod those guys.
I think like there's a really good conversation at the minute between these and Bloodstalkers from Daughters of Cain, and the fact that they're 24-inch bow shooting.
Oh yeah,
I think like that's really good. 18 inches is close enough that I think it's dangerous. But James, how many points do 3 flamers rock us back?
Let's find out. Oh, I've got exalted. Haven't got to play. 3 flamers. Do we want to make Nathan guess?
I think he knows.
I don't know, but
Go on, give it a guess, Nate.
I
Give
can't
it a guess.
remember. How many wounds are there each again? There's
So
2
it's
wounds
2 wounds each.
Yeah.
So for 3, you've got 6 wounds only.
I don't know. That's a toughie, that is. They do so much damage, don't they? 100 points?
140 points.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I think probably on the cheap side, ultimately, if we were being like really serious. But also, if you took this out of the Tzeentch force, you really struggle with output. Like that's genuinely like a feeling I have. But that doesn't mean that they aren't consistently in well-performing or winning tournament lists all the time. They're really good. Where this obviously becomes more of an issue is if you take the War Scroll Battalion Change Host, which requires you to have a Lord of Change and then 8 units of Tzeentch units, yeah, and it could be literally anything. And then you could teleport. You get a free teleport per turn, and you could teleport these Flamers of Tzeentch across the board as well. Like they're really, really good, and then they could do all of that output because we talked about it at the weekend. But a unit 6 is going to do 19 shots. So, Nathan, imagine at your Grots against your Grots, we'd be doing 19 shots. We'd be hitting on 2s. We could be re-rolling from the Fate Master, and they'd be wounding on 3s. There is actually a way to get +1 to wound in the army as well. So you could actually be 2s re-rolling, wounding on 2s, rend 1 d3 damage from 19 shots. And that's only going to cost you the 280 points plus a Fate Master to do that combo, which is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty scary, especially in certain situations like that. Yeah, they're really good at shooting grots, that's for sure.
I mean,
and
even
clan rats and stuff like that, definitely.
Yeah. I think that's the
Big
thing about them
hordes
is
of
they'll delete a unit. Clan rats, they'll delete like these large hordes so quick, and that rend 1 is really useful. Where they do, that's if they're in Eternal Conflagration. Where they do struggle is against armor, because if they do go up against armor and they aren't in the Eternal Conflagration with the rend, they've got no rend. Like they're not punching through anything. If you had a rerollable save, like Varangard are a good example. Varangard, if they had rerollable save from a War Shrine, Varangard just walk into this fire like it was nothing, and they just like run. Clintus Start Lock, thanks for subscribing. Big love to you. So if you did have a good armor save and it was a rerollable save, you could walk into this fire really easy, I think.
That's what makes them so hard to cost, is because it's without that Eternal Conflagration, they're not that scary, to be honest. Even it's that point, that extra pip of rend. So I think a lot of that 140 points, some of that has got to take into account that, because if there was no ways that they could access rend, then they probably wouldn't be as scary. I mean, up against an OBR force or something like that, they probably do very little.
Yeah, of course, because they're a glass cannon, and I agree with you that they're definitely hard to point. But the ease of which you can get buffs in this army is significant, right? In a Tzeentch force, the rerolls to hit is so important, and then the buffs to wound, and then even if you don't get the rerolls to hit, they can independently work really well. Like if you just have 6 of these guys or 3 of these guys, they're going to be hitting on 2s and then wound on 3s just from their War Scroll.
Yeah.
Which is bananas. So they're very, very, very good. And you'll see them a lot. And I know people know that, or some people might not know that though. So hopefully that's what the point of the show is. And we'll do this every week. And if you guys are listening and you like this, or you're watching on the live now, let us know what you think of this, because I think it's interesting. How many summoning points are they? James, could you find out how many summoning points they are for us while we...
Yeah.
Warhapedia.ru is just the place to go. If that answers your question. It's a Games Workshop's electronic online database, as I understand it. I think they might be 12. Thank you, guys. Right, so...
there we go.
Huh?
Is 12 right?
The guys will find out for me.
Cool.
But
I'm not sure
but
where
it's,
it is on
but
here.
it's really good output, right, Nath? Like, really good output from the Flamers.
Yeah. They're good. It's good output, but they are pretty much. They probably go down to a stiff breeze. They're not very survivable, are they?
No.
They are 18 summoning points.
Yeah, they're on the higher end. Right, so Exalted Flamers of Tzeentch aren't too different in that they get the +1 to hit, +2 to hit against bigger blocks. They do have Rend, though, and this is kind of a key feature here. Having an Exalted Flamer in your list, which I'm pretty certain is 120 points, but James could check for me. You could, if you had them in internal configuration, you could have Rend 2 on that Billowing Warp Flame, which they have 6 base attacks, and then they hit on 4s. Obviously, you get the pluses if you want to. They wound on 3s, and then Rend 1 D3, but it could be Rend 2. And then they've got all the same rules, so like a 5-up DPR in combat. But these guys, this is like super glass cannon. James, is it 120 points?
No, even better.
Oh, 100.
Flat 100.
Oh, baby. But it's only 4 wounds.
Yeah.
4 wounds. So again, it's crazy. When you look at a Tzeentch army, like, it's really fascinating when you look at it on the tabletop. You're like, okay, how many wounds you got? They're like, right now, about 7. Yeah, I've got like these 2 units of 6 flavors as Exalted Flavor. You're like, I'll kill through that all day. But then the pink horrors are in the way, which really are secretly 50 wounds. And you're like, oh, fuck, I hadn't expected that. And then these guys are like, they're so easy to get rid of if you can get rid of them, but you can't. Like, and then you need to make sure you prioritize what you're killing. The interesting game that we watched on the live stream over the weekend when we saw KO play, and you would think KO, because they've got the range, they would be able to go through it. But they left 1 Exalted Flamer on 1 wound, and they left 2 units of 6 Flamers on 2 wounds each. On 2 models each. Right? Which was just so if you're gonna fight against this army, you need to just make sure you just clear them off. Because if I said, I've got a 100-point model that's 4 wounds with a 5-up save, Nathan would be like, it sucks. What the fuck is that? I'll kill that all day. But the people don't. And again, consistent tournament winning lists. And it does make me think about things like Ungor Raiders and stuff, Nate. You know, stuff that can just like randomly fire like a couple of shots into a unit and poke them off.
Yeah.
But they don't. They don't die, which is fascinating. Or they're quick to
Yeah,
go.
it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Flamers, and again, you can get the rerolls on them and all the other stuff. So they're Flamers. And now let's talk about the big bird itself, the Lord of Change. So this normally features in the Change Host list because you need a Lord Change. 14 wounds with a 4-up save, and it moves 12 inches. And his bravery 10. Now, the worst bit about it breaking halfway through is just a bunch of things. Got to stitch it together as a YouTube video after is the worst one. We're back. If anyone would like to refresh the stream and podcast, guys, it's just all broken. Refresh the stream. Okay. I will take a moment to give everyone a chance to come back into the chat. So far, Nath, how are you feeling about the Tzeentch stuff? You've played this several times, though, like, because I've used it.
Yeah, I've played against your Tzeentch stuff, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It starts off a fairly small army, and when you're looking at it across the board, you're like, I should be able to run that over. But then, obviously, the horrors are absolute pain in the butt to get rid of. And then by the time you've dealt with them, you've been depleted fair bit by the Flamers behind, and then also they've managed to build up bloody summoning points, and then it's the summoning that, so they do come on stronger in the late game because of the summoning as well. I think that's quite an important part of their game, to be honest.
Tzeentch.
Yeah, and that's probably why why you see things that you think, oh, that should be like 100, 120 points, but then you've got to take into account all the summoning as well. That's why I think the pink horrors are probably undercosted by a fair bit, whereas
those poor horrors.
the flamers are probably about rightish, maybe. So yeah.
Yeah. And thank you. Sorry, just to clarify some stuff I was saying earlier, the flamers don't have a 5-up DPR. They reflect mortal wounds on a 5-up DPR from melee wounds, if that makes sense. So yeah. One of the things that we didn't talk about, now we're back, and I think everyone's in the room, we can before we touch on Law of Change, also when you've got those pink horror blocks and there's 50 of them, if you kill 49, I'm going to spend a CP and keep one alive. Not all the time, but one of the things we haven't talked about is Fold Reality, which is a spell you can cast on a unit, and you roll a dice, and you roll a 1, that unit explodes. If you roll anything other than a 1, you add that many models back to the unit. So Pink Horrors have got like 2 ways of returning slain models to their unit. They have the banner, and if you roll a 1 on the battle shot test, they return D6 slain models back to the unit. If not, you can roll Fold Reality. And Fold Reality, you can put pink horrors back into the unit. When you take wounds on a pink horror unit, you always have got to remove the pink horrors every single time. And the last one you always take off, obviously, is the banner. That's the important one. Yeah. So if I kill 9 pink horrors, yeah, they'll blow up into 18 blue horrors, and then I pick a 1 on my destiny dice. I'm going to get D6 pink horrors back, and I get the blue horrors basically for free in that setup. Like, they're so survivable if you manage to use them around. Bye, Lemon. Thank you for resubscribing. I appreciate you. So yeah, you end up like they're really, really, really good. They're super survivable, and Fold Reality is really good. And Fold Reality is also something that we could do on the Flamers as well, like we were talking about before, Nath.
Yeah. And obviously, if you Fold Reality, pink horrors and stuff like that, that'll be that banner bearer will be the first guy back if he's not there. Yeah. And then using the destiny dice to, or else rolling the 1. So many people roll 1s with that sodding banner. So yeah,
it's really good. It's really good. Putting D6, and don't forget, every one you put back in is actually 5 wounds you put back in. So your maximum return on Fold Reality and the banner is 30 wounds back into a unit. Like, which is, and the reason that's significant is normally the wounds cap. We'll talk about this a little bit more on other shows, but the wounds cap is about 140. And what I mean by that is your average wounds generally in an Age of Sigmar list, having spent years looking at them, and I mean in this season specifically, is about 130 to 150, around there. 150 actually pushing towards higher, so more like 130, 140. Generally, you tend to see that wounds cap. Sometimes you can go crazy and go higher, like Blight Kings, are an example of more, but generally 130, 140. So anything goes above that or below that. So being able to return 30 to a unit, potentially, is amazing, like, on that. And because sometimes you have to ask yourself, can I even kill the pink horror unit? Now, Nath, you take pretty aggro units. James, your Skaven list that you were talking about previously, not 100% certain it would even be able to take out 10 pink horrors.
No, just ignore.
So you're planning to ignore them?
Yeah, just don't play ball.
Okay, that seems fine.
Or put some clan rats by them, laugh at each other's faces, stand in combat for 5 turns, and no one moves. Because neither would probably kill each other.
That's not true. I think the pink horrors will smash them through, because they've got all that shooting, and then they've got the combat. There's a lot of shots coming out of the pink horrors.
Don't be scared of them.
Okay.
There's too many rats.
All right, so Lord of Change. So yeah, that, and also that if you like, so what we saw at the weekend is we saw a unit of 6 flamers get reduced down to a unit of 2 flamers, and then we saw Fold Reality, and we saw 4 come back into that unit. So they got 4 flamers back into unit, and then those 6 flamers went on a full rampage. Like, they just went wild. They were just burning the earth down. They killed Archeon in like a turn. They're just like, you're dead now, son. So it's just wild. Some little tactics, James, actually, that you might not be aware of, that people who play with horrors tend to do, is they charge them into melee units. So your clan rats, for instance, they would charge them in, and they would be like, cool, kill us, because we're going to have more bodies on the board now.
Yep. Yeah,
is
so I
super
think because I'd used in that Slaves to Darkness list I ran last year, there was 30 pinks appeared from what was the old Gaunt Summoner rule, and like putting 10 on a point every time one dies, you get another model.
Yeah,
So
it's really
forcing
good.
people to fight is just terrifying on like objective holding.
Imagine you then also forward reality unit that you can't run away from. It's really strong. That's the important point. So, Lord of Change, the bin chicken. Nathan, you've been looking at the War Scroll while we've been off air.
No, I've not. That's not very clever of me, is it?
Don't worry about it. It's okay. I'll read
I've got
it
it
through.
here. I've got it here. So.
Thank you to Hams Fan and Cameron for resubscribing. Appreciate you all, by the way. So, the Lord of Change 40. Go on,
yeah.
Nathan.
Do you want me to read it? Or
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, like you said, you can take the staff or the rod or a sword, and 14 wounds, 4 up save, bravery 10 as always. Starts off with a 12-inch move, and that drops down to 7 as he gets a bit more duffed up during the game. The rod does some shooting attacks, and then the other ones are all melee. So the rod actually is 2d6 attacks, 3s -1, doing 1 damage. And then the staff is 4 attacks, 4s. Starts off wounding on 1s, no rend, damage 2. And the sword is 2 attacks, 4s, 2s, -2, 3 damage. And then he's got his beak and talons, which are 4s and 3s, -1, doing 2 damage. So, yeah, he can do a little bit of output combat and shooting, depending which combination you take. But his abilities is the Mastery of Magic. This is when you make a casting roll, you change the lowest dice to match the highest dice. So that makes him a pretty reliable caster, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so if you end up casting a 6, like you cast a spell on a 6, then it becomes a 12 to cast. That's what it is.
If one of the dice is a 6, yeah.
If one of the dice is a 6. So that feels... it feels like a very strong ability. Having played with it a few times, though, like when you roll 2 3s or a 3 and a 4, yeah, an 8 is pretty cool as a cast roll, but it's not like dominant. You know, we talked about this like magical dominance, like that you maybe get from Nagash, and that you get from Teclis, and that you get from Croak in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% certain that of course I'm saying it's strong, of course. Yeah, and you've got the ability with Destiny Dice to pick dice results as well, if you wanted to. However, I don't know if it's the best, because some of the stuff that we're talking about, let's say if you wanted to do damage with Infernal Gateway, you want to do damage with Infernal Gateway, it's a 7. You probably are going to get it, but you might not get it. I feel like I would prefer a reroll with some pluses to cast than I would rather have that ability. I think that there are other stronger, more reliable casters. I haven't put the maths in. Now, you can actually get rerolls in the army as well. If you go into Host Duplicitus, you can get an artifact, a command trait, and you can have reroll casting in a bubble, which is also really, really useful. But yeah, to be honest, you just lets you hit average more often. Yeah, so instead of making you a strong caster, it makes you a more reliable mid-range caster. But the Tzeentch book generally has some high casting values on the spells. So you look at a Lord of Change and you think, I'm going to smash the magic phase. And actually, you're going to do okay in the magic phase, which is a very different sort of thing, especially for the price you pay for a Lord of Change, I'd say. You do get Spell Eater, which I think is actually a great rule, which is once per turn in your hero phase, you can pick an under spell within 18 inches of the model and you can eat it, which I think is brilliant. And also, if this model successfully unbinds an enemy spell with an unbind roll of a 9+, this model can attempt to cast that spell if it's possible for it to do so for the rest of the battle, which is super cheeky spell.
Yeah, that's great.
I would say that one of the things I like about Spell Thief so much is that it's super unique, and so when you play against it, you make mistakes with your army. You go you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to cast whatever spell it would be. Let's think a Teclis spell where he doubles the how many command points you spend.
Yeah.
And then you just go, cool, I'm just gonna bang that out. Like I'm gonna pick the unbind roll, and then I'm gonna try and cast it, and I think that's good. I also wish Spell Eater was at the hero phase. So yeah, another little bit of tech. Let's say I take a Great Brave Shaman. I pick some Destiny dice. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I can't do it with the Great Brave Shaman, so that's wrong. Never mind. Let's say I use a Chaos Sorcerer Lord with the Mark of Tzeentch. I can do that. I pick some Destiny dice and I cast Spell Portal. I put that next to the Lord of Change, and then I cast a spell through the Spell Portal. I then can eat the Spell Portal so it won't affect me next turn, and I can recast it. Because every time I cast a spell, I generate a fate point to summon. So I'm super on board with that. So I just eat the endless spell I cast it. That's actually out of phase with how we normally think of endless spells being cast or unbound. Normally it's at the start of the hero phase. So it allows me to put the Spell Portal out, do something super fun, and then take it away so you can't use it against me. Because Nathan, I know you love throwing stuff through enemy spell portals, right?
Yeah. As soon as the enemy casts a spell portal, I'm like, great. I can't wait to shove something back through there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Hamsfan says, I think it depends. They're not a dom compared to Luminous Realm Lords or Croak, maybe, but against most Fat Middle, they were dom the same as the others. I would agree, but like, it's kind of interesting where you're a combat army, let's say. So back in the day, if you were a combat army, you were like, I'm a combat army. You're like, that's cool. But then Slaanesh existed, and you were like, but I'm not as good as those guys. And so in a tournament setting, that's really difficult, because if you're not it, in a team setting, you could put these against like Magic Doms, and then maybe you don't like need it. My point is I think that actually the Magic that you find in Tzeentch feels like it's more of a buff addition as opposed to like the core mechanic, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway,
I think also, just sorry, because I'm just thinking about it, and like having played it, like I think even like when you look at it and you're like, cool, if I roll 1/6, I've got a 12. And I know we've kind of discussed that already, but I think like consistently, like Croak, when you can put him on +4, like you can roll Toilet and you still get a half decent casting roll.
Yeah.
And I think that's the scariest thing at the minute. There's so many people on +4 or 5 to cast.
Yeah, 3s and 4s generally. Yeah, you're right. Like, it feels very strong. Or you're picking the results, which I think is is in there. The point is, says Nordo, that there are many good casters, but the only real true good unbinders are the Lord of Change and Croak and Nagash. Croak actually is obviously really good because it's board wide, but of course you're able to I would say that the really good thing about this is the dispel roll. You're very likely to roll good dispel dice with the Lord of Change, and you can shut down enemy magic really well. And I think that that's a real strength of that. That master. I'm not saying it's bad by any means, but you don't generally tend to find Tzeentch players loading in to making sure they're not like these are the tournament lists I'm talking about. They're not like, I'm gonna do loads of spells from Lord of Change. He's also only a 2-cast wizard, which is weird because we did just talk about Be'lakor, who was 240 points, who's also a 2-cast wizard. James, how many points for Lord of Change?
He is 380 points.
It's a lot of points. Like, if anything, I feel like he is over.
He's an expensive boy.
Yeah, it's a lot. But then as a command ability, is you can use his command ability until your next hero phase. You can add one to the casting and unbinding rolls for friendly Tzeentch demon wizards while they're wholly within 18 inches. But you could use that CP if you wanted to, but the CP that you are paying for, really, in the army, is for making Pink Horrors immune to Battle Shock, and for spending on the Fate Master if you've brought a Fate Master in your list. Like, it's so much better to just keep that CP in your pocket and make a unit of Pink Horrors immune to Battle Shock and then bang Fold Reality on them than it ever is for +1 to cast.
Yeah.
Like in my opinion. So like very, very expensive. And also 14 wounds with a 4-up save. When we get to it and talk about it in a minute, Lord of Change is almost always seen in a Change Host list. When it's not in a Change Host list, you just don't see a Lord of Change. You just don't see them because the Change Host gives you a 1-drop, so you can like drop super low, so any of the shooting armies can't just drop down and just rinse your bin chicken off the board and just be like, out he goes. Because it's not very survivable, right? 14 wounds on a 4-up save just isn't very tanky. And like especially for the points value, Bloodthirsters are the same, but like almost 200 points cheaper.
Yeah.
In some cases.
Boring though.
So what is he? 380.
Yeah, what do you think, Nath?
Yeah, I guess that's slightly expensive. Yeah, he's 100 points more than Shaman on an Arachnarok. Same wounds, same armor save.
So yeah, one of the things, he's obviously also a demon, so he's -1 to hit in melee, which is also useful.
Yeah. I'd say he's probably better than the Shaman on Arachnarok. A better wizard and everything. So yeah, but 100 points better. Or is the Shaman on Arachnarok even priced right? Who knows? Fuck knows.
But it's only 280 for a Shaman on Ragnarok.
Yeah.
A Shaman on Ragnarok can fight as well, right? Again, like Lord of Change in taking in Chain Show's lists all the time. Like, I'm not here sat being like, oh no, it's too expensive. Like, it's really good. It's really good.
I'd say their combat output's about the same. This guy and the spider. Yeah.
Okay, well.
I'm afraid. Yeah.
The also important point to note is if you think about it in the army, he's sat behind a bunch of pink horrors that are just super nails to get through.
Yeah.
But he is a huge portion of an army. So yeah, that's the Lord of Change. And then let's talk about an old stupid chicken that knows loads of things in Kairos Fateweaver. So
what a babe!
What a babe! 14 wounds with a 4-up save, and he can move 12 inches as well and can fight okay, which is fine. But he's got a couple of... Oh, I didn't talk about the War Scroll spell that you get for Lord of Change. Infernal Gateway. It's cast on a 7, and you roll 9 dice. And if he's not wounded, every 3+ causes a mortal wound. It's really not bad. 18-inch range. It's not a bad War Scroll spell, ultimately. Like, you know, you'll take it. But it's 18-inch range, so it's in your hero phase. We talked about the Flamers being close. Like, if your bin chickens within, like, danger range of something that you want to do those mortal wounds to, like, then I think it's a bit of a worry. But it's nice. It's definitely a really nice spell. Really good War Scroll spell to have. Like, I think that's great. Kairos, though. This guy. So Kairos is almost seen, like, so Archeon's there, like, all right, lads. And then Kairos is right next to him, like, what up, brother? Ready to go. So normally, in your host duplicitous list, you generally will see Kairos and Archeon double up together for a couple of reasons.
Having a good day out.
They're just best buds, James. They just really like each other. They're friends. They're like, oh, you're old, you know stuff. And he's like, I do know stuff. I wrote it down in this book that I weirdly carry on this stick. Very
do you remember
impractical.
that world we used to live in?
That you buggered up. That we buggered up together.
Yeah, of course. So this bin chicken. So he's got the same thing. When you cast a spell, it flips. You've got Spell Eater, same thing, right? He also is a 3-cast wizard and can unbind 3 spells. So good. Loads of casting available to Kairos. And he's got an amazing spell, right? It's cast on an 8, right? And you pick an enemy unit within 18 inches, and then you go up and you look and see how many wounds it does. And if he hasn't taken any wounds, if he's unbracketed, it's a flat 6 mortal wounds. So flat bush. Normally you see this put through a spell portal, and you just see this guy like absolutely punk a character or punk a unit, or most importantly, you see it done through a spell portal towards a unit that's like an archer unit, because when you do kill something, you generate a chaos spawn. Steve the Spawn. Every spawn is called Steve. It's Steve the Spawn. Steve the Spawn, and it's really good. Because you can just... Because in my hero phase... James, let's pick your unit of... Jezzails. Let's go for Jezzails, right? Because, like, already I'm going to kill loads of them, which is super nice. Yeah? Like, I'm going to kill them. Like, might kill them all dead. And if not, I put a Chaos Spawn next to them. And the Chaos Spawn maybe could do some attacks, but Jezzails are never going to kill the Chaos Spawn. So in your next turn, you have to retreat them, which means they can't shoot, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just looking, just as you're talking as well, I'm just looking at his like War Scroll, and just in that like magic bit where it's like You just know everyone's spell.
Yeah. Tell us about that bit as well.
He's a 3-cast wizard. He has a good spell, which I think is important, but also just that. So in addition, while friendly wizards are wholly within 18 inches of him, Kairos Fatewither knows any spells of those wizards' war scrolls that are possible for him to cast. Nuts.
It's really good. It's super good. And one of the things about it is that you can then ally in wizards that you want spells from, which is why we've got Goat Watch. James, you'll be a big fan of Goat Watch. It's where you ally in a great Bray Shaman, or not even a great Bray. I mean, they're pretty. All the Bray Shamans are great. Just a Bray Shaman generally, yeah. So you take a Bray Shaman, and he's got a Devolve, which is a spell that drags a unit across the board. So knowing that is super useful, right? So yeah, Goat Boy does great work. It's really useful, which is normally why you see that in the list as well. Can I just say thanks to Codex Carly, who said something that reminds me of how great the community is when I had the friendliest, most fun game playing against Rob with my nids at Hellstorm events ages ago. Oh, thanks. Oh, love to you. That was fun. Thanks, Codex Carly.
He'd slept that day.
But yeah, Kairos knowing other people's spells is good, especially when they release more Chaos stuff. Because Kairos obviously can choose Destiny dice. So if you've got a good ally, so let's pick Be'lakor, for example. Let's say new Be'lakor comes in at under 400 points, let's say, yeah, and has a dumb new spell. Let's say something mental. Everyone dies 2+. Let's go, yeah. Kairos can cast that spell, which is cool. And I can't overhype how good the 6 mortal wound spell is through a spell portal. It's so good. You've got like a big brick or something, you're like, they're going to go and smash face later. You're like, cool. 6 mortal wounds, which is already pretty devastating, and your next movement phase, you're going to have to retreat. Or you're going to have to fight this dumb, stupid Steve the Spawn, who's obviously perfect and flawless. And
I also like the fact that every time you talk about that spell, you do the hand action.
Yeah. Gift of change. You just gift of change that goddamn Spawn. I love him. Now, probably the most contentious issue, insta-kill Fireslayer, KO heroes. That's a good point. Insta-kill maybe some of Nathan's heroes. Insta-kill your Warlock Engineer, James. Oh, damn it.
He was having a nice day out.
It's really good, right? Like, it's super, super good. Now, the gift... Now,
I'm gonna have to say that I hate talking about Tzeentch. Because every time we do it, I get tempted. And then every time we get to the bit where we're like, this guy turns people into spawns, it's really fucking annoying. I'm like, I really want to buy this army. I really want to just turn people into spawns. I really like the idea of playing a Fire Slayer army and be like, I don't know what any of your army does. It all looks the same. Point at a hero. Cool. He's a spawn. And then like just having like a box full of spawns and then some will have little Fire Slayer Mohicans. I'll be like, he looks the same. You can't tell me. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Well, big shout out to Codex Carly. Hopefully we get to play Warhammer again sometime soon. That would be great. So the other thing that we can't not talk about is the Oracle of Eternity, which is Kairos' special ability. Once per battle in either player's turn, if this model is on the battlefield, you can replace, that's the important point, a single dice from one of the following dice rolls, which means it's not a modifier. That's a really important point, because there's some FAQ stuff, but you can replace a result as opposed to modify a result. And so that wording is really specific. From one of the following dice rolls with a result of your choice. But this is either player's turn, and you get to choose anyone. So this is you and your opponent, James. Like, Nath, me or you. So you do a casting roll. I'm gonna replace one of your dice. You've rolled a 6. I'll turn it to a 1. Unbinding rolls. You've unbound my spell I want to stop. I'll turn that to a 1. Now, you've only got one of these once per battle. Yeah. Run rolls. You've run a 60 onto objective, win the game. Now it's a 1. Yeah. Yeah. Like, there's charge rolls. You've got your God of Death. Yeah. He's 7 inches away. No problem. You've rolled a 12. Yeah. That won't work. You're 8 inches away.
Beaten by maths.
Damn it.
Fucking maths.
Save rolls. Like, you've got that save that's going to stop that big damage. What any? And battle shock tests, of course. Now it's really, really, really. I know that was dumb, but that's fine. I am an idiot, so we're all okay with that. So it's just really strong, like super, super strong, and you get to see it included in the Archeon build all the time, because you can change one of Archeon's sword rolls to a 6, so that you can put something in the sword, which is good. But I guess like. It's one of those key pieces that you've got a 3-cast wizard, but you've got the ability to change the whole shape of the game one time, and actually, like that feels very, very good. Stopping the Slayer of Kings is also a good one.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I've rolled 2 6s. No,
I just like that. I just think like narratively, he's an arse, isn't he? Like Kairos is an arse, really. If anyone ever played that Untitled Goose game where you're a goose that just goes around and causes chaos, that's Kairos.
Yeah.
And I just think like that moment where someone's like, "Oh my god, I've rolled 2 6s. I've played Archeon for like 5 years. I've never done this," and you're like, "No, you haven't."
Yeah.
That's what I want from a game. That'd be great.
Well, you can see why though. With the inclusion, so Kairos is almost always in. Kairos is never in the Change Host version. Kairos is always in the Archeon version, and it's because like of there being some clutch dice rolls on such a big model sometimes. Now you've already got 9 dice that you can choose results for, so having another dice that you can stop your opponent choosing or change a dice roll for your opponent is actually really important, I think, because it ties in. So you're like, I'm gonna definitely do this, and you're doing nothing. Yeah. Which is rough. Like, it's really good. And we normally, like, so good. So good. And you can see why it's so competitive. Kairos, though, is same amount of points as Lord of Change. Am I right, James? Or is he more?
Slightly more. He is a 20-point difference, so 400.
400 points. Nathan, what do you think about this war?
I mean, that's crazy that he's only that much. I mean, he is better than a Lord of Change. Unless they've got some seriously good artifacts or command traits. He's just better.
Yeah, he's more than 20 points better, isn't he?
Yeah, he's much more than 20 points better. So, yeah. He is a useful war scroll. I mean, just casting and unbinding 3 spells is good with that. With the being able to flip the dice, that's really,
really strong.
Sweet.
Yeah, you're paying 20 points for just so there really isn't a reason to take a Lord of Change that isn't Kairos outside of Change Host, because Change Host gets you the 1 drop and you get the artifacts if you want on the Lord of Change. That's really, really important. Beyond that, Kairos is definitely the pick. So yeah, he can't be the Lord of Change in a Change Host, which is what I was talking about. Which is why you don't see him. Like, it's why you don't see him in a Change Host.
What is the artifact that is it a designated artifact that they have to take in Change Host?
No. So when you're in Change Host, no, there's not a dedicated artifact. But when you're in your sub faction, you do have dedicated. You do have dedicated ones, and I'll go through those now. So the Eternal Conflagration one, which is normally what you see Change Host in, although you see him in others, the command ability is -1 to hit. Oh, wait, hold on. No, not the command ability. Sorry, the command trait is subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by missile weapons that target friendly demon units wholly within 12. So you basically have -1 to hit in melee and -1 to hit in shooting from the command trait. So having that on your big bird is so
Great.
good. So good, right? Like, so good. And then the artifact is roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or a mortal wound inflicted by a melee weapon on the bearer. On a 3+, the attacking unit suffers a mortal wound in return. It's not that good. Like, it's whatever. I'm just going to say that. So yeah, like, yeah, it's fine. But you get the rend. Now, if you go for Host Duplicitous, Host Duplicitous Change Host, which, James, this is where you're going to run your big brick of 20 pink horrors.
Yep.
You're excited about this? Yeah. You can reroll casting and unbinding rolls for friendly Host Duplicitous Demon Wizards while they're wholly within 9 inches of this. So rerolling casting and unbinding. Incredible. And then the artifact is add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target the bearer. So you'll end up with a 3+ save bin chicken, which is great. And then if you go for Host Arcanum, which you don't generally tend, so we're not going to talk about that yet. Or Guild of Summoners, we're not going to talk about, and Cult of the Transit Form, we're not going to talk about. So because they're all obviously perfect, of course. Like
they're too perfect for this discussion.
They're too perfect for this conversation. Thanks, Nate. So yeah, the artifacts. There's a couple of other artifacts to talk about, actually, and a couple of spells, just how that affect this army before we move forward. The Demonic Power, which is Aura of Mutability. Tzeentch Demon Heroes only. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by friendly Tzeentch Demon units that are wholly within 9 inches of the bearer. So if you're able to get a second artifact of power and get a Tzeentch Demon Hero, you can have +1 to wound. So those horrors that we talked about earlier could be hitting on 4s, re-rolling, wounded on 3s, or the Flamers can be hitting on 2s, re-rolling, wounding on 2s.
Nice.
Yeah. Such a good.
Spend a command point, re-roll them wound rolls.
So, yeah, like crazy good artifact. That's called the Aura of Mutability, and you tend to see that a lot. All right, so we're going to talk about Fold Reality we talked about already, which is a 7, and there's some other good spells as well, like Tzeentch's Firestorm, which is really important, and also Infusion Arcanum we'll talk about in a moment as well, and Shield of Fate. We'll talk about both of these now. Shield of Fate is cast on a 6. If successfully cast, you pick a friendly Tzeentch unit wholly within 18, and then that unit gains 1 of the following effects based on the Destiny dice. So on a 1 to 3, you reroll save rolls of 1, so you get a Mystic Shield. On a 4 to 6, you can reroll save rolls for attacks that target that unit. On a 7 to 9, you can roll a dice each time that unit is affected by a spell or end a spell. On a 4+, you get to ignore it. So if you've got 7 to 9 of your Destiny dice left, you've got a 4+ spell ignore, as well as a re-rollable save.
Jeez.
Wow.
It's good. It's good. And then Infusion Arcanum, which is another spell we're going to talk about in a moment, so we'll talk about it now, is cast on a 5. If successfully cast, you add +1 to hit and wound rolls for attacks made by the caster until your next phase. So the caster. So the caster gets +1 to hit and +1 to wound.
But the units can't take those spells, eh? So it's just the dudes.
Just the dudes. Okay. Just the dudes. But we're going to talk about the dudes now, because this is the other build, and we'll go talk about this War Scroll right now that you play for Tzeentch, which is Archaon, the Ever-Chosen. Yeah. So 20 wounds with a 3-up save is already a good start. And if we cast Shield of Fate like we just talked about, we can end up on a 2-up save. Oh, sorry, a 3-up save re-rolling, ignoring spells on a 4. And he also ignores spells on a 4. So you got 2 chances.
Which is always important.
Always really important. He also is a demon, so he's -1 to hit, which is super nice. Yeah. We've got Infusion Arcanum, which he could take as his own War Scroll spell. So that's going to give you +1 to hit and +1 to wound, which means the Slayer of Kings is going to be hitting on 1s. So even if you are -1 to hit, he's still hitting you on 2s. Monstrous Claws are also hitting you on 2s. Lashing Tails are hitting you on 3s as opposed to 2s now. And then your 3 heads are hitting on 2s. So your whole unit is hitting on 2s basically. And then they're all 3+ to wound, so it changes it all from 2s and 3s to 2s and 2s across the board for Archaon. Jeez. So it becomes super reliable. 4 attacks based from the Slayer of Kings, which is 2s and 2s, Rend 2, 3 damage. 2 attacks from the Monstrous Claws, which is 2s, and it would be 2s, -2 d6 damage. Yeah? And then Lashing Tails, 2d6 attacks, hitting on 4s, but it would be hitting on 3s with Infusion Arcanum, wounding on 2s, no rend and 1 damage, and then the 3 heads start out at 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, but then it could be 2s, wounding on 3s, but it will be 2s, rend 1 doing 2 damage. So just a ton of attacks, right? And that Infusion Arcanum, unbelievable. And then he's got all the other stuff that he's got as well. He's got his command abilities. If he dies, he's a 2-cast wizard, so he's doing that. He's -1 to hit. You can do Geminids. And then we need to talk about, like, there's loads of good stuff on him. Like, almost too much to talk about. We've talked on the show before, but that's the build that you see on him, and that's the reason you see. The Infusion Arcanum spell is so good, so useful, and he just becomes this, like, beat stick. Also, he moves 14 inches, and then you can guarantee a 12-inch charge.
Yeah. Yeah, which is terrifying. He's like a marauder.
He is like a marauder. If anything, he's like the king of the marauders. The other couple of things to talk about in the Tzeentch build and why the Tzeentch build is so good is because of a couple of things. Specifically, the Host's Arcanum, which is a sub-faction. It's got a couple of things in it. So this is the sub-faction that you take if you're running Archaon. And this has got, once per turn in the first and third battle round, you get to unbind a spell, which is quite useful if Archaon's close.
Yep.
You've also got a command ability, which does some stuff for Sky Sharks. But the important part is... oh, wait, am I talking about Host Arcanum? Yeah. Where's my pre-game move? Oh, there it is, Spell Hunters, the command trait. So on your general, the command trait, after armies have been set up before the first battle round, D3 friendly Host Arcanum units that can fly can move up to 6 inches. So Archaon, because he's got the fly keyword, can move 6 inches pre-game. So now he goes. So now his base move in effect is 20 inches turn 1, with a 12-inch automatic charge if you get those Destiny dice, which gets you a 32-inch threat range, which is very far. Which is very far. So, and then there's one more bit to add to this combo that needs to be talked about, and that is the agendas that you pick. So when you're playing as Tzeentch, you pick agendas at the start of your hero phase to try to achieve, and then you get different results depending on them. The most important one is completing a 9-inch charge. If you complete a 9-inch charge, you get +1 attack on all your melee weapons for the rest of the game, which is pretty good, because then Archaon has +1 attack on all those weapons, which is just crazy. So yeah. And James, how many points is Archaon?
He's 800 now.
Yeah.
So he's expensive.
He is. And then you take Kairos with him as well. So that's 1,200 points. Yeah. Which is a lot of points. And we did see, so interesting, like round 5 of the TTS coverage we did at the weekend, we saw the Change Host, which is why it's so fun to do this show today, is we saw Change Host Tzeentch play up against Host Arcanum Tzeentch. And Host Arcanum Tzeentch lost. Stephen Follows threw it forward, and the flamer just burnt him to death. But it did take 2 turns to burn him to death. But it is really strong. Have you got Nathan? You got any thoughts about all of this generally?
I mean, yeah, he's 800 points is a lot, but then he wins games, doesn't he? And he, yeah, it's just an interesting way of playing the game, and that's where somebody like Bellicor can step up with his thing and just say, you just chill out for a turn or 2 turns, yeah. And then, so it's not the way I play the game very often, I think. I don't like putting all my eggs in one basket, and he's definitely a case of putting maybe not all of your eggs, but a huge chunk of your eggs into one basket.
Most of them.
But he's a very reliable basket of eggs, isn't he?
If you're gonna have a reliable basket of eggs, he's it.
Yeah, he does. He's pretty scary. Yeah. He's proper god level at that thing. But there you go. You're paying the points for it, though.
You are absolutely paying the points for it. But like, it does the job, and you can see why those lists are taken together. Like, I think that's the thing to remember now, is to understand that when you're looking at that Archaon who's 24 inches away, he's actually going to be 4 inches away, and then can have a guaranteed 12-inch charge if he's got the Destiny dice available. That's pretty wild. Like, being aware of that. Like, being aware that, like, that unit of only 12 wound flamers is going to burn to death all 60 grots in a go is nuts. like, and something to be super conscious of, like, but also knowing it's a fairly limited range. So if you were trying to stop it, then you want to try and drag them out of their protective bubble, because normally you see the change host list play as a very concentrated castle, and what you normally see from the Archaon list is you see it play as an aggressive, throw it in your face, can you deal with this? Because you've got 2 spell ignores potentially. You've got loads of good stuff in a Tzeentch Archaon, as well as Tzeentch dice to just stop debuffs. Just be like, I'm going to stop you from debuffing me. And then also, if you ever get a Geminids off, you could just have that 20.3 wound hero be -2 to hit.
Yeah.
Which is just really good. James, what are your thoughts, like, talking about this?
I just want like, realistically, I either want to play it or I want to turn people into spawn. That's all I can think about, is how much, like, probably not tonight. Probably at some point tomorrow, I will sit and look at what a list looks like if I just want to turn people into spawn.
It's the future. It's the only thing. It's the only thing you need, Steve, to spawn. So if you guys found this helpful as like a refresher, but also like a kind of look at like what's being played, it's one of the things I think we if there's no books coming out, I'd like to do every week. And I kind of just launched this on the guys today, so they weren't really prepared. But for next week, the guys can kind of read up and they can have their own sort of thoughts on it. But I thought that I think it's really valuable for us to kind of go through as a community and just be like, okay, the book's been out a year. This is what gets played. This is how it gets played. Like, you know, and,
this is how you turn people into spawn.
Exactly. Yeah. What can we do, and how can you stop it? Nathan, you got any thoughts about like stopping it, or do you feel comfortable playing against it with most of your armies?
Yeah, I mean, so realistically, we're saying that there's 2 main builds, are there? The Archaon list and then the Change Host list with the Flamers and the thing. And then Archaon's backed up by just blobs of horrors, I assume.
So if we look at Stephen Fowler's list as an example, if we were doing a cookie cutter, we ended up with Kairos in the list, Chaos Sorcerer Lord, because obviously he's got demonic power, which is rerolls to hit and to wound. So it's 2s and 2s rerolling to hit to wound. It's pretty incredible. Also, Oracular Vision, so you've got a rerollable save available on Archaon as well, if you wanted to, which isn't Shield of Fate, so that's different. So that just means you've got that full rerollable save. Then 2 units of Pink Horrors, I think it was. It might have been a unit of Pink Horrors, but it might have been 2. And then a Great Bray Shaman for Devolve is what we saw for that Archaon list. They generally tend to move around. Devolve is so good, dragging a unit out of position, because really, getting Archaon to where your opponent doesn't want them to be is the key play. So having Devolve, which is the Bray Shaman ally, brought in so that Kairos knows the spell and can just do it, is amazing, right? Like really, really useful. So that's generally what that list looks like. And then the Change Host list, normally an Exalted Flamer, sometimes 2 units of 6, 4 units of 3 Flamers, whatever it might be, a couple of units of Pink Horrors, and some Brims to fill out the battalion. And then either it's a 1-drop, or it's got the Fate Master in, and it's a 2-drop.
Yeah. And so what is Archaon scared of in that list? What kills Archaon? Or does he not die? Everybody just kills everything else around him.
Well, I mean, killing everything around him is like a positive step, but it's really hard to ignore because...
he's super mobile, isn't he?
Yeah.
And wherever he goes, he has a bit of an impact, you could say.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sharks. We've seen sharks kill him. 10 sharks doing shooting attacks into him has killed him. One of the main things you can do...
Really?
Yeah. One of the main things to do against the Archaon build is what happens is he buffs him up like a missile. So all of your buff pieces are at the back of the board, and then you throw it forward, and then it's just like, cool. If you can wait a turn, or give the turn away to the Archaon player and you're in a safe position, all of his buffs will fall off. So, and the big, most important one is that re-rollable save. So as soon as you can get that off of Archaon, then is much easier to deal with. Otherwise, it's a 3-up re-rollable save, which is just that's not fun to try and chew through. Ultimately, he's also got My Will Be Done, which is like, and also the other thing to affect the Tzeentch army is command points. They're generally like looking to spend those command points on either the Magister or an Archaon himself, I guess. But what kills him? That's the great question. I like it. Hopefully, people listening to this show are like, "Oh, I really thought my 2 Charybdises would kill him, but I've run the math, and it seems
Great model though.
perfect, like all models."
No, all Games Workshop models.
All Games Workshop
Not
models.
others. Mantic.
Flawless.
Whoa! What?
Yeah. So, and Nathan, the answer is what kills him. Not tons. Corn Archaeons. There's one. But the major issue, not major issue. This isn't like you will win every tournament ever. But this is a very well. These are 2 lists that are doing really well at tournaments at the minute. Like they're strong. You would see them in teams events. You would see them in loads of different. They're strong lists, which is why we're talking about them. Yeah. 40 skinks will also kill him.
But will also kill everything.
Yeah. It's a non-combo, isn't it? Really about that. And then the Tzeentch, the Chain Shows list is if you can flood them enough, or if you can get to the flame